Welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. I'm one of your hosts, my name is Joel, and with me as always is my stationary co-host.
Brian, hi.
Hi Brian.
I do really like pens and paper clips and stuff, so that's fair.
Always with the jokes. So this week we are talking, watching, engaging with Season 4, Episode 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer called Wild at Heart. Mm-hmm. Brian, do you want to set the stage for us there?
Sure. So this was written and directed... this is written by Marty Noxon and was directed by David Grossman. They both last appeared doing writing and directing Living Conditions. One interesting note is that Marty Noxon specifically actually really wanted to direct this one and didn't get to. Because she really identified with the content. So take that from that way you will. And it was first aired on November 6th, 1999. And hey Joel, actually that's so funny because today's November 6th, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. It's November 6th.
We're at least 11 months into this year.
It's the 6th of November of March, yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool. Okay, so here is our Buffy summary. Oz escapes from his cage and meets another werewolf, the amoral musician Veruca. He locks her into his cage with him the next night, and Willow finds them together. Willow tries to curse Veruca. Did I say Veronica last time?
You almost did, but you saved yourself. Okay.
Who arrives at sundown to kill her. Oz attacks Veruca as they both change and kills her. Buffy overpowers him. Oz decides to leave town. That was all pretty accurate, though. Yeah. I would say that I think that Willow specifically was trying to curse Oz.
Yeah, and also the amoral musician Veruca is someone's activation code. Someone out there is going to try and assassinate the president now.
Let's hope.
So for our Bronze Banter segment, I think what we felt very emotional about, I'm feeling emotional for, inexplicable reasons the last week. We watched the finale of a little cartoon program called Steven Universe Future. Mm-hmm. Steven Universe Proper is also finished. So we're just going to spend the next few minutes detailing spoilers for the finale and for really the whole arc of the program.
So Steven Universe, we've probably talked about it before, right? I mean, we've certainly mentioned it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of the best non-adult cartoons going, I would say, as in it's absolutely great consumption for adults, but it definitely works on the child level as well, which I think is really important. Whereas your BoJacks, your Simpsons, and your Family Guys, what I was going to say there, but I don't want to say that. Yeah, Rick and Morty, Bad Mouth. No, is that what it's called?
Big Mouth.
Yeah.
They do have bad mouths. Though.
They do have bad mouths. Oh, they have disgusting mouths. But Steven Universe is specifically very appropriate for children. Lots of LGBT content in it. Mm-hmm. Very slow start. So I would say the first 20 episodes, they're only 10 minutes long each, so that kind of helps, but they're very slow to get going. And then when it gets going, it's really, really gripping, really stunning, intergalactic, thought out storylines, lots of self-care messages. It's a great little cartoon. I like it.
Yeah, and came to quite a complex conclusion in terms of engaging in a non-sensationalist way with trauma, really, and how people grow and change and how relationships change. And there was just something very unsensational about it. Something I always appreciate about Steven Universe, and which I miss in retrospect, is it always had a lovely colour palette.
It has a gorgeous colour palette.
Pastels.
It's very pastel-y, very pink, purple, blue pastel. Yeah.
Oh, actually, another program which works similarly to Steven Universe well on a child level specifically is Gravity Falls.
Oh yeah, so funny that you mentioned that. Cool. I was actually just thinking about Gravity Falls today.
Yeah. But yeah, Steven Universe is great. Now is the time to start watching it if you've never watched it. It's complete. It was always so fucking difficult to watch.
I remember what when we were talking about Steven Universe was when we were talking about the movie in November or October when it came out, because Keen was listening to, our friend Keen has been listening to the podcast
secretly.
6 years later or whatever, and he was like, "Oh, I got a shout out," and I was like, "Oh shit, what did we say about you?" And he was like, "Oh, you just said you're over at my house to watch Steven Universe on my projector," and I was like, "That's true."
Yeah, absolutely factual.
The Rutro, what have we said about Keen in the podcast? Probably bad stuff.
But yeah, Steven Universe though was a show that was really difficult to watch legally, or otherwise.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of it's on Netflix.
Yeah, but it's easier now essentially.
Yeah.
One weird, the one I to satiate my lust for spoilers. one weird inconsequential spoiler I'll share is that it was quite a naturalistic show, except for the magic and space stuff. But like otherwise, they had 5 fingers. It's the depiction of human life, American life, was fairly close to reality.
Everyone was very nice to each other
in an idealized fashion, Okay. But just casually in the end, towards the end of the last episode, Stephen just like, states. Oh, you're going to check out the other 39 stakes. And just for no reason, I've just put it into an alternate history.
So bizarre.
It really distracted me in a positive way.
I mean, get rid of Texas, Alaska, Hawaii.
Alaska? I like Alaska.
Okay, they can keep Alaska. Oh no, I'm not listening ones that they should get rid of. I'm saying ones they can because they're so like out there.
Sure. And that's the extent of our US geography that we can
I did a quiz recently where I had to name, basically Tara and War Academy do a thing where you had to like name as many states as you could, not like locate them on a map, but like just name them from the US. How many do you think I got?
30?
I got 40.
40? That's pretty good. Yeah, I don't think I could do 40.
Yeah. I always get Delaware because I drove through Delaware when I was in America in 2006, and I was like, what the fuck is a Delaware?
Yeah.
How have I never heard of this before?
I only know it from a joke on Wayne's World. I don't think I could confidently name all 32 Irish counties. I could obviously name the vast majority, but I always feel like there's that one where it's like, that's not a real one.
Tyrone.
Tyrone. Like, I wouldn't have said Tyrone with a gun to my head. You know what I mean? But yeah, Steven Universe is very good. It's a good time to be watching cartoons because they're so bingeable.
Yeah, they are.
So consumable.
Yeah. So this is week 3 of the coronavirus. So that's fun. Or as in, like, I mean, I think this is week 3 of us specifically being homebound because of it, which is fun.
It has that weird. Sorry, I'm cutting across you, but it has that weird energy that reminded me of some. And this actually might be a spoiler as well, so I won't say specifically what, but some property where someone goes as like an expedition or something, and they think they're like the second expedition to go and investigate it, and when they get there they find diaries and journals going back like 30, 40, 50 expeditions. Because everyone's timeline is out of sync around the world with this. People are entering different phases.
Like there are some places in America, some states that have no lockdown whatsoever, which is wild. Ireland has gone into complete lockdown by this point, barring essential services, which is just crazy. So that's going to be at least 2 weeks for us. Though I would say that like almost everyone has like really, really dramatically cut down their social interactions before that. Yeah. So,
actually, weird piece of virus related trivia: Corona capers. I've heard people are no longer using the expression. Some people, okay, are no longer using the expression viral tweets or going viral.
Oh, really?
Because now it has much more emotionally negative.
What did they think it meant before?
Well, they did, but no one cared because it wasn't happening to them. Yeah. I was walking around the house today because it's also daylight savings time now, or no longer daylight. I never know which one it is. I've read it before.
I think it's daylight savings. We're currently in the Irish summertime, as in we were in GMT. I think Ireland is like naturally +1 GMT Irish summertime. Anyway, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I went around the house anyway. I changed the clocks. I did actually do it in the end, by the way. But there was a time where I was like, I don't even know if I feel like there's any point in doing this. It seems like throwing a stone into the ocean in terms of my control of my environment.
At the same time, I mean, like, how much more crazy would you go if every second clock in the house was wrong? It would feel
incredibly appropriate.
Yeah, true.
I feel like I'm inside David Bowie's Labyrinth. So let's talk about something. Let's transition to something that we know, that we understand. Buffy Summers. So in basically
Buffy Summers. Where? Who? I don't know her.
As in because she kind of wasn't in this episode.
Yeah, this is a Buffy Light episode for sure.
It is a Buffy Light episode. It's true, and they're rare. They're few and far between.
The last one would have been the Zeppo. The one before that would have been, Which bothered and
I appreciate the effort. Like that was when you're falling down a hill and you have to keep going or else it'll hit your face.
Yeah, but so which bothered blah blah blah.
Others. Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. Buffy Light episode. A strange episode.
A bad episode.
Basic premise being that Oz is leaving the series.
Yeah.
by all accounts, Seth Green has left fairly abruptly.
Yeah, he got offered a movie role. He wanted to transition into movie making or being a film star generally. One of the things he has said over the years is that Oz worked better as a recurring character rather than a regular.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't disagree with.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with myself either.
I always found that like scenes that Oz was also in sometimes had a sense of, oh, Oz is also here.
Yeah.
You know? Which is fair. He's a quiet character. But yeah, no, he left pretty abruptly. It seems to have been very amicable. Mm-hmm. But it has disrupted the structure for the season. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think it was my understanding, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit, but basically that the intention was for season 4 was to have this love triangle build in a more organic fashion between him and Willow and Veruca, which I will not get over. But really what we get is 2 glancing references.
Like, she really is a pain in the foot, Joel.
Very good. 2 glancing references, and then he kills her. Like, that's kind of the arc. But yeah, it's an oddly structured episode.
It has that sense of a very special episode, which the great Buffy episodes tend not to do. I'm trying to think. There was one episode in the last season I feel like that had a very special-ish feeling to it. I'll come to it in a second. But yeah, it had a bit of otherworldly feeling to it. There was lots of scenes with less dialogue. There's a scene where Oz and Willow wake up in bed together, and it's very like tranquil, which is a very non-Buffy energy, I feel.
Yeah, like, and Willow goes to Xander's basement apartment just for advice on relationships, which is kind of like in no way supernaturally tinged, which is kind of, it had more sitcom-y or vibes, or soap opera vibes, maybe it's more appropriate. So basically what we have with the episode is he encounters Veruca, it escalates, realizes she's a werewolf, tries to contain her, feels very animalistically compelled towards her. This blows up his relationship with Willow because they sleep together in wolf form. Veruca tries to take Willow out to have Oz to herself, and Oz kills Veruca and leaves to go to Tibet to contain his wolfly impulses. So that's kind of the arc. That's really Oz closed out in the show. He does reoccur, I think, twice.
He recurs twice in this season and basically realizes that, Willow is no longer in any way interested, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I a question I was going to ask you. Seth Green.
Yeah.
What did he do after this? I know that he was in Austin Powers. I know who's in that Tucker, the Nickelodeon show. Yeah. Did he do something I'm missing?
He did Mass Effect.
He was a voice of character in Mass Effect, one who had
his acting career did not blow up. I mean, he's a known figure. I think he's
Robot Chicken. I think that
he did a lot of Robot Chicken, but that was years and years later. Yeah. He didn't have a hugely successful explosion after this, so I'm not sure what role he left for. But I don't think it was necessarily a smart move. Because
I think I agree. Like, I agree with him. I agree with him that Oz as written works better as a recurring character. He is often, and Oz is also here, but that's usually the gag, is that he is there designed to deliver one scene, one line, one contribution.
I feel like I called her Marty Nixon earlier, but I meant Noxon anyway. Go on.
I think he said Noxon. Okay. Anyway, we know who we're talking about. Yeah. I feel this episode, within the range which Oz has as a character, exposed that he couldn't really carry exactly stronger storylines. To do so, he would have had to have undergone some kind of alchemy in the same way that a Wesley does, or a I was going to say Charisma, or a Cordelia does, and he didn't have that opportunity. So yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to see. I like Oz. Big Oz fan as a character. I wouldn't have wanted to see as much of him like this in episodes going forward.
So realistically, the structure of the season most likely was going to be that he would descend, showing more and more of the wolf side until he more or less gives into it. And at that point, there's the denouement, and he kills Veruca. Maybe episode 16 would be my presumption.
And if it works up to that, maybe that could be good, but I think we have, even with that arc, you have a recurring, straight away you have reflections of faith. Yeah. And you have really throughout the show, I think, reflections of people developing these issues, often for better or worse reasons, hiding them from the gang, and then getting to a point of no return, which is like a structure that happens in Buffy. Yeah. But you really have to earn that. And I think with Oz, I would kind of feel like, why not just... Like, he's not very emotionally invested in being a werewolf. He's not part of a werewolf community. There's no history of that in the show.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like, a lot of what she's saying about being controlled and stuff like that, like, you know, obviously our natural inclination is going to read masculinity into that. But even if if you're taking it as the text presents, which is that, like, you know, a monster inside you, which is a theme that has recurred consistently in Buffy. I think Mark Fields mentioned this. Actually, I had thought about it when I just do my general research before the episode. But the other Marty Noxon episode this very specifically calls back to would be Beauty and the Beasts. Is that what it's called? Anyway, the one with the Rage Monster in the beginning of season 3, which also has Faith discussing the monsters inside men, etc. So that kind of duality of identity and identity questions, I think that fits in with Buffy as a theme generally. I just don't think it works for Oz in this episode. There isn't a monster inside Oz. That's the point of his character, is that not that, like, you know, he's some Bruce Banner, I'm always mad kind of character and he has to hold it back. The characterization of him is that no, he's actually just a well-adjusted, nice lad who does his best in a difficult circumstance.
He's a white hat.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think there are different kinds of bad episodes. This episode doesn't leave a bitter taste in my mouth necessarily, but I feel that it's a victim of circumstance, and it doesn't gel well with kind of earlier portrayals of werewolf in the show, where, you know, he's initially bitten by his cousin Kenny. I want to say it's like,
it is Kenny. Yeah, I think
it's played as a goof.
It is,
and even otherwise, it's just kind of like it's almost like an American kind of 60s horror family themed monsters, Addams Family kind of thing. It's like, oh, Oz is in the cage again, etc. You know, so there's definitely stuff there. But I think when Veruca says, you know, she says something like, what if you're the wolf all month long and the human face is your mask? And it's like, it's a bit
so
kind of
like,
yeah, it's so like out of the book of big cliches that you can say as a werewolf.
Big old emo book.
I also feel that for someone with no backstory, not even a throwaway line of how she got bitten, no other supporting characters, nothing, she is really inexplicably evil.
I thought for one thing, I think her actor was either getting bad direction or isn't very good.
It felt like
she kept doing this thing with her head where she'd be like,
yeah, it felt like bad direction, and maybe that's unfair, but my feeling was that this was not her best take of what ever seeing it was.
No,
but it was very kind of like, her motivation was very plot driven as opposed to organic anyway.
I mean, like, and this is all fair. I think this is all, we're bearing in mind here that, like, this is a rush storyline.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm sure this would have been a lot better handled if it had gone as originally intended. Can I give you, because I feel bad if I don't at least refer to one academic text.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's actually an essay that I've referred to a bunch because I really like it. But it's a Hubble Bubble Herbs and Grimoires, Magic, Manichaeanism and Witchcraft in Buffy by Tanya Grzywinska. But she specifically refers to, you know, just the Oz metaphor that exists, and just characters with alternative faces, double identity characters. So she says, applied to the frequent splitting of characters of the Manichaean myth can be interpreted as allegory, a way of articulating the disjunctions between who we think we are and who we in fact are. Yeah, so I mean, like, you know, Manichaeanism being the philosophy of there being two extremes, good and bad, and things are swinging between them, etc. But I don't think Oz really represents that split. You know, who he really is not a wild beast at heart. That's a thing that absolutely, like, you know, if you want to talk about nuanced portrayals of masculinity, I think it's a really good metaphor in some ways. But I don't think Oz has a violent part of him waiting to burst out as a character. I think that's a contrast, not an exposition. Yeah, no, you're
100% right in the sense that there's two ways to cut with these supernatural tropes.
Yep.
Either you use the trope to reveal exactly, and that would be the character who has these repressed emotions which come out when they transform. This is more along the lines of a poetic
Italian mob character who's called Tiny. He's always going to be huge.
Yeah, exactly. These poetic contrasts. One of the core ones in the program is the vampire slayer falls in love with the vampire.
Yeah,
that's
or
funny.
The really cool guy loses, like, his ability to be controlled once a month. You know.
Yeah, exactly. So Yeah, literally, that's it. Is that Oz is a werewolf and is otherwise the most stable person in the group.
Yeah.
But he has an unstable part of him that he is actually incredibly like clockwork and regulated.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, but like I think in terms of what it does for the show, it's one of the main schisms for me where I often think, what would the show be like if Oz had stayed for another 2 seasons? Because I think it's a
major splitting off point for the show. Yeah,
major splitting off point, and I think it's one of the few that could be legitimately changed in the sense of like Faith isn't going to stay through season 4. Realistically, Angel wasn't going to stay. All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It would have left no room for. Would have left lots of room for Willow's move towards Tara, which I think would have been lesser.
Yeah, no, I think it will be absolutely lesser in terms of what is good for her character and also what makes us enjoy the show and complicates the show in an interesting way. And I find that these last few episodes have not been great from my appreciation of Willow in some ways.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they have portrayed her and tweaked and tuned her, particularly in relation to Oz, or when she's near Oz, to a almost Pollyanna kind of Midwestern kind of slightly judgmental.
Yeah, where she's always been very, very witty and very dry humored and very able to be sardonic and like, you know, pithy. And in these episodes, she becomes like incredibly sweet or incredibly bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this episode, she's, I mean, in fairness, I mean, the way Oz is behaving in this episode is absolutely bizarre. Like he's sitting there staring at this girl on stage, doing nothing else and ignoring Willow. That is a weird date.
As is both Xander and Giles.
Yeah. Or that other part in the episode where he asks Willow to get coffee with him, and then when he gets there, sits down with Veruca, and when it becomes uncomfortable for like 3 seconds, is like, I'm gonna leave. Peace out, guys. And leaves Veruca and Willow just to sit there and talk. It's bizarre.
I've had someone do that to me before.
Really?
I was at an event where I only knew one. I'm going to be very general. Where I only knew one person there, and it was all people who were involved in some activity that I wasn't part of. So we were getting dinner, and I bought dinner with my friend. It was a big roast dinner. Sat down with their friends, and they got called away, and they left me to have a Carvery dinner with all these people I didn't know. It was the worst. So yeah, bizarre behavior. But the three things that Willow...
Even if I didn't know who that story was about, I'd know who it was about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't say anything. Nothing further. Plead the fifth. 3 things she does in this episode which are very strange and which are unfair.
You're turning a bit green there, Joel.
When she sits down at the table with Veruca, there's this bit where they're talking about amps because they both know music.
Yeah.
And she just acts kind of really dumb and is like, oh, I love when Oz talks about the biz. And it's like, I'm pretty certain her as a girlfriend would be able to incorporate the fact that he likes things that she doesn't have a direct interest in. But it presents this as, oh, maybe they're not as good a couple as we thought. She also she goes on about how she's like, oh, I love Elvis Presley, Hound Dog, and it's like, and everyone's like, lol, imagine liking Elvis. It's like the 90s, Elvis was still pretty cool. Yeah.
A, and B, Willow has portrayed like a pretty good taste in music previously.
Yeah.
So
she also can't say sex to Xander, and when she does, she says making love in a way that is like just portrayed as twee. And then when probably one of the most egregious moments in Willow's entire character development is when she has her heart broken by Oz, and she's very upset and all that, but she walks into traffic.
Yeah.
And there is a suggestion, at least on what Riley's point of view, that she did it on purpose.
And Buffy thinks that as well afterwards. So
yeah. So all of these things are not reflective of, I think, the Willow that's been developed at this point. And
Agreed.
I think they are victims of that. It has to emotionally accelerate in this episode in a way that I think Willow is usually quite hard. She's quite hard to rile. So I don't think you could get her there unless she acts out of character. But I think it does her a disservice, because I think it portrays her as a less feminist character and a less well developed woman.
Okay, well, what I'd say is that it's not unfeminist to be emotionally upset by a breakup. you know.
No, I'm not saying any of these things.
She doesn't say anything about, like, you know, having defined herself on the basis of this man. So as well. So I think that's an important note.
No, I'm not saying any of these things as broad categories of behavior are potentially unfeminist. Like, not getting amps isn't unfeminist by itself, but it's just that I think the tone of it is just tweaking the dial a little in that direction for me, where it's a slightly exterior depiction of how the girlfriend reacts in this situation, as opposed to coming organically from her character. It's only a notch on the dial, but it's a notch in the wrong direction for me, I feel.
No, I would agree with you. The episode is somewhat saved by a very strong final scene, though. I think when people remember this episode, they often remember the final scene in which Willow just absolutely blubbers at Oz, saying that he shouldn't leave, basically.
Don't you love me?
And don't you love me? And he does leave.
That's difficult, yeah.
And Alison Hannigan, fantastic job. Like, when Alison Hannigan cries, I cry. It is across the board. She gives the most incredible cry face. Her face collapses. Yeah,
and I will say, just to be clear, I think she does a great job with the material she has, and I think the other people in the episode do the best with what's given to them. It's just that the shape of the episode is wrong, but like no one does a poor job on this.
So I mean, to talk about, like, you know, the shape of the episode wrong, we've spoken a lot about how it doesn't feel like Oz. There's so many actions of Oz that just do not make sense in this episode. So I mean, like, asking, like, why not ask for help, you know, at any point? Say
the first thing he would do is ask for help.
Absolutely. You know, if he woke up having had sex with someone while in werewolf form, surely he'd presume at some point, to some degree, that, like, he didn't intend that, and to talk to someone about it, for sure. He doesn't really make a very sincere effort to make sure that Veruca doesn't kill people. The next night, he's just like, oh, you should definitely come in here, and seduces her in, basically, to, I don't know, give into his own stuff, but also to keep her from hurting people. But it's like, you know what would have been a much more effective thing to do there? Get Buffy the fucking Vampire Slayer to help you to do it. There are multiple situations. Just Oz's reactions in this situation just read totally off. I do not get it.
Something else I thought was interesting as well about it is one of the ways we discover that this has happened is that the two wolves chase down Maggie Walsh.
Yeah,
and
it's important to note the girl werewolf costume is one of the stupidest fucking things you'll ever see in your life.
I'll tweet some pictures of it. It doesn't look good. It looks like Miss Pac-Man version of the werewolf costume.
They took the werewolf costume and they were like, it needs a wig
and kind of like a lavender tinge.
Yeah, I'm like, just leave her be. Yeah. Like, have you seen wolves before? Do lady wolves have long hair? No, because that's insane.
Like, I know it's like, it's literally what it is. It's on the nose, but it does look like they've taken the wrong step in an Animorphs cover than what they're aiming for the werewolf. Yeah. But anyway, the wolves chase down Maggie Walsh. And there's a nice bait and switch where they set up that she thinks she's been chased by some wild dogs, and she tells her helpful Midwestern TA Riley about it, but obviously she knows exactly what they were. But I think there is an expectation there, watching it in order, that you would probably expect her to be killed, because teachers and faculty always get killed on this show. True. And then it turns out that she's actually much more capable than... Yeah,
I believe that... Maggie was intended to be the big bad of the season as well. So that would make sense as well, in terms of at the beginning of the season, her being led to believe that she's like vulnerable and potentially very killable, where in the end she ends up being very strong, you know? So.
And speaking of big bags, you know who else is in this episode for a frame?
And says the phrase big bad?
He does. Spike.
It's a great little scene. I love it.
It's yet another... we need to get a phrase, an umbrella phrase for this scene where someone's dramatic speech is interrupted in a way that makes them look silly, because the show does it 9 times out of 10 and only doesn't do it to Angelus.
So true.
Angelus. I'm infected. But yeah, so he basically comes back and he's listening to Buffy staking some vampires, punning. She gets some great puns in there by heartburn.
Heartburn.
She also says one about that they don't appreciate her painstakingly crafted puns. It's like, is that also the rare follow-up double pun? Yeah, exactly. But he's hovering over her, saying that, you know, watch out, little girlie, big bag is back in town, and then he gets zapped by the initiative.
Which is so funny, because that is the last time we ever see Spike be a threat in this show.
Yeah. He's literally being dragged away to be neutered.
Yeah.
I'm actually really looking forward to talking about that, because I just think that the idea of giving him a MacGuffin of like a neutered chip as a way to like make his character acceptable is such a weird and interesting device.
It is. It's a pure device, and it works because, like, I mean, it just sparks the imagination so well, and it just creates, it makes for great chemistry with everyone. I mean, having a vampire around who cannot hurt people is just fun.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that this whole stuff with the initiative, the demonology spike and all that, it just really adds more fuel to the fire of who is acceptable to kill. You know, who has a soul, who doesn't have a soul? What does that mean in terms of the show's morality? Because are werewolves people? And if they're not people, who decides that?
Yeah.
And if they are, it means that Oz
just ripped out
a woman's throat out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really violent, and like there's no real sense at the end of the episode. He's talking about how he can't be around Willow, and in fairness, like Veruca had intended to kill Willow, so that's one thing, but he doesn't really express any remorse about the fact that he just killed a person.
That requires more, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely from Oz, who has been completely blameless in the show up until this point. You know, that should be an escalation for him. And is it worse if a werewolf in were form kills someone versus a vampire without a soul? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what's the tier ranking there?
I know, and what some complication there, because Oz, while just before he transforms, is like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, while he has half his nose transformed and massive sideburns.
Oh, such long
the fact
sideburns.
he's a werewolf.
So awful. And she has like weird tufts of hair coming out of her shoulders. Bizarre.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
And then I think in terms of, this is an interesting episode structurally, because it's something that actually happens in my experience in genre shows a lot, where you introduce, it's a passing of the baton. Is that how you say that word? I was going to say baton for a second. Baton. Passing of the baton, where you introduce the arc that a character is moving to as the other one has to leave. So you have two things happen for Willow in this episode. One, we have the first passing reference to her joining her Wicca group, and obviously that leads on to Tara and many other things for Willow, but also an escalation where Willow again does a more powerful spell. She specifically does it maliciously, and she does it and generates power from and generates risk from being emotional, making the beakers rise up in the science lab, which is kind of where all of her
problems,
all of her problems, but all of her character for the rest of the show will be filtered into Magic and Tara for the most part.
Yeah.
And also Kennedy's there somewhere at the end, I think.
What I found a bit off about that is that I think it'd be more appropriate if she did it kind of flippantly, where she does this quite like maliciously. Whereas I think Willow's problem with magic is like the ease and flippancy and rashness she does things with, as opposed to like meanness. I don't think it's ever motivated by meanness. Whereas like if she had been like, okay, I don't know what to do now, and just like, you know, ended up like looking up a spell and accidentally doing something quite vicious, like that's a much more of an expression of the bored now facet of her personality, which does exist in her, than what we actually see.
What happened to the Willow who had work ethic, and when she had her heart broken, she would attack them with a fire axe? Remember those days?
Yeah, so much better.
Rally many people to do the same.
Okay, let's move into the dusting. If that sounds good to you.
Painstaking dusting, yes.
Okay, so Buffy Bits. I have a couple for you if you want me to rattle them off.
Hit me up.
Apparently Veruca, I have Veronica written fucking down as well. Veruca's boyfriend was on set for the naked cage scene, and that made Seth Green very uncomfortable because he was in a boy thong during it.
Oh, not good.
You can see their flesh-coloured underwear quite a lot in the scene in the cage. It's just very clear. There is a line in the episode where Buffy refers to Veruca as Kel Fiona. I've seen this being referred. Saw a couple places where people said that this is a reference to Fiona Apple, who was a genuinely brilliant musician in the 90s and has gotten better. So that's awesome. If you need an album recommendation this week, listen to The Idler Wheel. And that's only the first 3 words of a very, very long album title by Fiona Apple. It's great. Mark Fields, we'll have a quick little literary note here. Mark Fields identifies this as an episode where Oz is struggling to integrate the id i.e. he ignores the fact that he has one and tries to march on as if it doesn't exist, and that's what causes the problem, like, lack of integration. And he also highlights this as part of the season structured theme of identity and identity loss. What I want to know is why Buffy never did anything about all these vampires that were on campus before. They were apparently just roving around munching on poor co-eds, and she just never did anything about it.
I think she just needs to, she cultivates a small supply, just to keep coming back to like a maintained community of the mortally challenged, who should be respected for their own society.
Okay,
that's what I'm getting. I
have no idea what you just said, Joel.
I'm coming around. I think I'm a vampire. I think I'm going to convert to being a vampire activist.
Okay.
I haven't been excited in a while, Brian.
Buffy. Sorry, go on.
I have a Buffy bit for you.
Okay, go on.
Veruca is the first of a number of characters throughout the Buffyverse who is a supernatural singer.
Oh, okay.
Because if you think of Lorne and various other people kind of later in the show, but she's the first one to kind of link those two things together.
That's interesting. Very Dazzler. So, yeah, one of the other things I was going to say was there is a musical montage in this episode for absolutely no fucking reason. It is awful, and I hated it. And Willow, when doing her prayer, calls to Barabbas, who, of course, was the man who Pontius Pilate freed instead of Jesus. Mm-hmm. There was like, free Barabbas. I think he was a thief or something. Satanas and the devil? I would have thought those two people were the same thing. Do you have any Buffy bits further?
Yeah, one more. In this episode, obviously, Oz attacks Maggie Walsh, played by Lindsay Kruse.
Don't know.
Apparently in ABC After School Special in 1985, she played his mother. And then he went on to try and kill her. So I'm sure this lesser podcast could grab some low-hanging fruit of edible implication there.
Okay, so fashion. Willow is wearing the greenest leather pants of all time with the most silky top, and I hated it. I hated it.
Silky top, isn't that insert your own Joker?
So Giles is wearing a brown coat at one point with a nice grey jumper on it, and I didn't hate it. Buffy wears a bandana, which I did hate, on her head to hold back her hair like a headscarf, and it just looked awful.
As opposed to on her face like a bank robber?
Well, no, around her neck, that'd be okay.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
Like a nice cute dog. Willow was wearing a barf modern art top that Veruca sarcastically compliments. Xander has gone full like oil or petrol salesman, working at his petrol tank station. What do you call those petrol stations?
A gas station?
Yeah, he's working at a gas station. Yeah, he looks like he's working at a gas station. He looks like he looks awful. Oh, and Veruca has a bone tattoo on her back, which she has a couple of tattoos. I'm pretty sure they're real. I don't think they were fake.
Those are the two options.
Yeah, they looked pretty real, but one of them is a bone tattoo, and it 100% looks like a stick and poke.
Not bone as in, you mean bone as in the...
As in a
the
bone...
comic book?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean a bone as in a, like, it's, a big long line and then two big circles at the end.
A juicy bone.
But it's definitely a stick and poke, which is hilarious. Cool. Do you have any fashion notes, Joe?
My only fashion note would be that we see the introduction, obviously, of her Wicca circle, which has a very... Tara personifies it, but just a real kind of flowy, velvety dress and
Renaissance
like loads
fair.
of Renaissance fair, loads of big chunky beads, and everyone just looks like the theme was musty. So we'll be seeing a lot more of this as we go forward.
Yeah. Okay. Death count?
Just Veruca. Yeah.
See you, Veruca.
And Oz and Willow's relationship, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Willow's heterosexuality, R.I.P. in this episode, in the ground, stake in the heart.
So true. Okay, do you want to give a rating out of 10?
Yeah, sure. I would probably give this episode a 6.0 werewolf wigs out of 10.
Okay, pretty good. Do you want to tell a bit about that?
I think it's a hard one to love.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everything that is interesting in this episode is part of something that is interesting about the season that's done better elsewhere. Like, there's initiative stuff, and Giles is cute, and Xander is helpful, and all that. But there's more of that elsewhere. I think that Alison Hannigan, for all of her difficult part to play in this episode, does a good job. And yeah, I like that it focuses on werewolves, which are I think an underserved element of the show to a certain. I've always been interested when they turn up, but nothing about it kind of set me on fire. I didn't feel, as Veruca would say, my blood boiling with excitement.
True. I'm going to give this episode 5.2 planetary epidemics out of 10.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. I didn't like it, honestly, overall. I thought it was passable in lots of ways. There were some funny jokes in it. I thought it was structurally fucked, and I think it was bizarre motivation, and it was a hasty exit by a good character.
True good doggy door.
Yeah. All right, you ready for the Cordelia chase?
I always am. This week on the Cordelia chase, we watched Sense and Sensitivity, where the basic premise is Angel, in italics, the TV show, thinks that Angel can do mob stuff because it's in Los Angeles.
Oh, so bad.
And also because he has a friend who's in the police force, etc.
And I like Kate.
I like Kate too. But yeah, it's like Little Big Tony or whatever is trying to get out of something, and Wolf from Heart, who are the evil lawyers, are helping him get out of it. And there's a guy who looks like a drag queen version of Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory is the lawyer. Yeah. But the whole shtick is that Kate is very emotionally closed off because her father, who is a cop who's retiring, is like really mean for some reason. I apparently told her that her mother, when her mother died, was just worms in the ground, which sounds like child abuse. It doesn't sound like emotional distance. Yeah. But the Wolf from Heart hire a sensitivity trainer to go into the police and wave his warlock stick at them, and then everyone just starts saying their emotions really loudly in a way that is somewhere between childlike and drunk.
Yeah, and it's deeply illogical.
It's just a prop for some comedic scenes where it's really like stoic cops retirement party. Everyone starts talking about respect his emotions and process catharsis, and letting prisoners out of jail being like, I just think you turn into more monsters if we tie you in here. I've written you a poem. There once was a spoon. It was literally, the poem was as basic as that.
And Angel, of course, gets hit by the sensitivity stick.
He does,
and he turns so gay.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. Everyone else gets immature. Angel goes gay.
Yeah.
Angel's just
Angel goes gay is
Tony,
one of my favorite porn
Little
movies.
Big Tony. I really feel like you have some anger that you're processing, and it's really making me. He just goes, but I love it. Yeah, that part I loved, because I love Dave Boreanaz when he does a bit.
He's such a good comedic. He's not a good comedic actor. I just like him as a comedic actor.
He does two bits in this episode. One is Gay Angel. The other is Angel from Arkansas, where he. From Arkansas, because he goes down to the dock and he wears a big loud tropical shirt, big wide brim hat to like get the drop on the mob guys, and he does this whole bit about being there for the boat out to, look at my map and I was here on the boat out to Schenectady, New York, or whatever, you guys, a big city here, etc. And he does this, and it contributes nothing to the plot, because he just does it for a couple minutes and then punches them in the face. Yeah. So he just wanted to get out his bag of hacks. Yeah. It's a wild episode. It's not a good episode. I would give it like a 6.5 failed feminist gestures, because it is a very broadly written episode, but like it makes me laugh.
Yeah, I probably would give it if you're going non-introduced.
Oh, sorry, I always
what did you give it? You gave it a 6.
I said 6.5, I think.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah. You're going a 6 or 7? 6. Grand.
It's not 7.
If I was going to give it something, I'd probably give it a 5.5, but I think I'm going to have to run it down to a 5.
Yeah,
5 failed feminist gestures out of 10.
The biggest weak point in the episode is that because they're in Los Angeles City of Angels, they think they have to do this Law and Order type shit.
Yeah. Bizarre. And when it gets much smaller in seasons 2 and 3, and it really helps.
Yeah. But like, it's ridiculous, and I have memories of it because I had these 7 episodes on DVD for a very long period of time.
Sure.
So yeah, but like not a great episode all around. Maybe next week will be better.
What is next week on Angel? Is it Hero? Oh, it's Bachelor Party. That's not nearly as good as.
Sorry, it's actually episode 9. He died then. So next week on the Cordelia Chase, we're going to a bachelor party, where we actually have a recurring Wigan actor, and we have some family drama.
Oh, good.
So we'll see you there.
Great. Cool. Okay.
That's it for this week. So as always, thanks so much for joining us. We hope that we have kept you company on your commute from the bedroom to the kitchen table.
Please don't listen to our podcast when you're in the bathroom.
Listen to a podcast wherever you like. I don't mind. Have one podcast in one ear, different one in the other. Multitask. Do what you need to do. But thanks so much for listening. I hope you're well. Hope you're safe. Wash your hands. But until next time, tell your friends, tell your takeaway delivery driver, and we will see you next week on
Buffy Boys.
Buffy Boys.
There we go. Great. Okay, I'm so tired. Goodbye.
See ya.